Thanks so much for joining us for this
Brett.
week's Connect to Congress. Joining us is Senator Mike Lee. He's had a busy day with hours of testimony in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee questioning our Attorney General William Barr. What, if anything, did you learn new or came new from these hearings today?
First and foremost, I learned that Attorney General Barr is capable of enduring hours of questioning, even facing unfair personal character assassination from members of the committee in a way that I thought was unfair, and yet he maintained his professionalism. He maintained his composure. He was nothing but civil and professional the entire time, and I think that speaks well of him.
I listened to not all of it, but a large portion of it, and oftentimes when we hear these hearings, I feel like senators, or whether it's on the House side, congressmen, are really just using this as a time to make a statement themselves, and very few questions are asked. Do you feel like we got to any substance today, or was it a lot of grandstanding, even from both sides?
Well, sure. Look, there's some grandstanding that goes on in any committee hearing, but we did have a good conversation with the Attorney General. We were able to get information through a series of questions and answers about the timing of the back and forth between the Attorney General and Mr. Mueller and what transpired between them. Last night, it was leaked that there was this letter from Mr. Mueller to Attorney General Barr, supposedly accusing him of mischaracterizing something. He pointed out today that the Attorney General himself spoke to Mr. Mueller in the moments following the issuance of that letter. Mueller told Barr, look, there's not really anything misleading about what you said. I didn't like the way the media characterized it. I thought that was an interesting revelation from today.
One thing as I was listening, relating to that letter, is that Mr. Mueller did write summaries, executive summaries of his work. And from what we're getting, that maybe he didn't feel like he was represented properly. Should those executive summaries be released in hindsight now?
Well, look, the fact is that this report was released just a couple of weeks after the initial letter was. The entire report wasn't released initially because they had some work to do. They needed to do some redacting in order to avoid breaking federal law by releasing so-called 6E material, that is material that's protected through the grand jury processes, and also to avoid releasing information that's classified for national security reasons. So the fact is that this information was released. I don't really understand what those who are complaining about are describing, especially given the fact that you had this subsequent conversation between Mueller and Barr, in which Mueller told Barr he was really complaining much more about the media reports than he was about Mr. Barr's letter.
After Democrats today were in that hearing, many of them, and even before today, are now calling for William Barr to be impeached. Do you believe he's done anything to be impeached or have reason to be?
Absolutely not. That's absurd. It is a patently absurd claim on its face. It's going nowhere. There is no basis for taking any action against Mr. Barr. William Barr is an outstanding Attorney General. I thought he acquitted himself very nicely today and defended his own actions in this case.
When we look at the full Mueller report, have you read the entire report at this point?
I've looked through it. I've spent a lot of time with it. It's over 400 pages long, and I'm familiar with its contents, and I'm continuing to read through it.
There's still talk when we look at the letter of the law and the spirit of the law that even if there was not an offense in there where the president can be held accountable, that maybe in the spirit of the law, he was doing things that the president of the United States should not be doing, asking people to do things he shouldn't be doing. Do you agree with that in any way?
Look, anytime you've got an investigation that focuses first and foremost on one person and is drawn out for 2 years, you're going to find things that are unflattering. Are there things in this report that are unflattering? Yes, of course. But the things that you were describing, the things that people are expressing most concern about, are what we call inchoate acts. They weren't carried out. He didn't follow through. He decided not to do a number of the things that he talked about doing, and he didn't do them. That's not impeachable. Now, impeachability is, of course, a political question, not a legal one. The House of Representatives could make the decision to impeach this president if the House of Representatives wanted to. I think it would be a mistake politically, but that's for Nancy Pelosi and the House majority to decide, not for me.
Speaking of the House, they would like to have the Attorney General before them in a committee. At this point, it sounds like he is not willing to do that. Do you believe he should go answer their questions as well, like he did today in the Senate?
No, I think he should, and I know that he has offered to do precisely that. It's not accurate to say he's not willing to answer their questions. He didn't see that it was necessary for him to go and be questioned separately by committee staff. It's not typically what we do with attorneys general. Attorneys general go and they answer questions from members of the committee, members of Congress themselves, not from committee members. But it's not accurate to say he's unwilling to testify. He's offered to do that, and I suspect he will.
Now, the report that was released, that's more than 400 pages, did have many redactions in there. There are still calls for the report to be released in its fullest without those redactions. Do you believe there is reason to do so, or is there harm in doing so in some way?
There's unquestionably some harm that could come from it. Look, I've gone through this. I've spent hours upon hours with this report. I can tell you that every redaction that I've seen makes a certain amount of sense. In other words, it doesn't appear to be arbitrary in any way or overly stingy in the way that it conceals information. That information, from what I can tell, is information that can't be released because it's grand jury material or because it has some type of connection to sources and methods of national security information collection.
Senator Mike Lee, I have a dozen more issues I'd love to get to, but we are out of time today. Thank you so much for making time to be with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.